We are on Daf Yud Daled Amud Aleph. Just to remind you of where we've been up till now, we said in the Mishnah that we gave a lot of examples of in the Mishnah of things that are chayve krisis that also get Makkos. So we brought that this is a machlokes between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel. That chayve krisis get Makkos, but not chayve krisis bezdin. Rabbi Shmuel says no, even chayve krisis bezdin will also get Makkos. Makkos is not just for chayve krisis; it's also for chayve krisis bezdin. You're not stopped from getting Makkos because it's chayve krisis bezdin. Now and then we brought the brisa, which said a third shita, which is Rabbi Yitzchak. So that's 4 lines down on Yudaled Amud Aleph. Rabbi Yitzchak, Aimer chayve krisis b'chlal hayu. The Torah says a general rule of chayve krisis that they get Makkos. I would say that chayve krisis. It says that if you do any of the isurim of the Torah, you get krisis. Then why does the Torah then say again? It says not just by all the lavin and the Torah cars, but it also says specifically by the isur achoisei, by a person who's baal achoisei. The pasuk of Isha sheyikach as achoisei bas abvay bas imay ros avasa v'yitiras avasa chesed hu v'nikros alein b'nei amam. So the Torah adds an extra curse by his sister, the isser for a person to be born his sister. That's coming to tell you, no, that you only get karas and you don't get Makkos. So Rabbi Yitzchak is disagreeing with both Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva. They had both agreed that if you chayiv karas, you could also get Makkos. He says no, even if the Torah said a chayiv of karas, there's no Makkos. Whenever there's a isser karas, it includes a isser Makkos. Rabbanon, we're just saying over the third shita. We're on Yudaled Amud Aleph. We're saying Rabbi Yitzchak shita that chayve krisis do not get Makkos, and we learned it out because the Torah said an extra karas ba'achaisei. Rabbanon karas ba'achaisei lamali. What did the Rabbanon do with the karas that we just mentioned that Rabbi Yitzchak is saying it's coming to tell you that you only get karas and you don't get Makkos? Unlike Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel, what are the Rabbanon going to do with this karas that it says ba'achaisei? L'chalik. It's coming to tell you that you're going to have to bring a separate carbon chatas for every type of chiyuv karas. It means if a person is mechayiv, he's over on one lav, and then he's over on a second lav, and let's say he was 2 separate types of gili arayas, he's going to be mechayiv on each one a separate carbon. You're going to have to bring a carbon chatas for each one separately. You have l'chalik, karas b'achaisei l'chalik. We have it many times throughout Shas. Rabbi Yochanan said that you chayiv on, or this he says specifically l'gabei arayis. Let's see the Rashi on the last wide line of Rashi. L'chalik l'fisha kol arayis b'karas achas. Since the Torah says whoever does me'ateiva sa'ela v'nichrasu, I would have said you're only going to be mechayiv one carbon for all of them. She's going to be mechayiv on every erva that a person is over on. As we're going to see later on the blot, that will mean that, for example, if someone's born 5 different nidas, he's going to be chayiv on each one. And if someone's born achaisai and achaisaviv and aishasach, he's going to be chayiv a separate chatas of each one. Rabbi Yitzchak had used this to tell you that we don't give Makkos for a chayiv karas. So is he going to learn that you don't get a separate chatas, that you get a separate chatas for each chayve karas of our erva? Nafkalim vel isha benida tumasa. The Torah says, isha benida tumasa vel isha benida tumasa loy titma. Person's also to be born an isha nida. Why does it have to say isha nida? It's not. It wasn't 2025, so they understood that only a woman could be a nida. So he learns that from the X word isha. L'chayev al kol isha v'isha. That's where he learns the mechalek, that you mechayev a separate chatas for each iser ever. In fact, the Rabbanan nami typically meha. That's a very good raya. Why did the Rabbanan have to learn it from the kares b'achaisa, yatsa kares b'achaisa? Einachanami. He says, yeah, you're right. We're going to have to go back, and we're going to have to again figure out what do the Rabbanan do with yatsa kares b'achaisa. If we don't need it to tell l'chalik because we have a different source for that. So now we're back to our original question. If Yitzchak learns the fact that the Torah was yatsa kares b'achaisa to tell you that there's no chi of Makkos when there's a chi of kares, the Rabbanan, meaning Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel, who disagree, what are they going to do with the fact? Why did the Torah say a specific kares b'achaisa? Elas kares b'achaisa lamali. It's coming to Mechayev, tell you that you're going to be Mechayev a separate lav, and you're going to have to bring a separate carbon for his sister, and if he's born, the father of the sister of his father, and the sister of his mother. So Gemara, Pshita Hari Gufa Mechlakin, Hari Shemus Mechlakin. I want to ask, what are you talking? We just said that we learned out lechalak that you mechayev a separate carbon for each issue. So why these are all? It's three separate. He was born three separate people, and they're all separate isurim. Of course, we just said this did. So it says no. We're talking about over here a case where it's all one person who is both his own sister, as well as the sister of his father, as well as the sister of his mother. How do you have such a thing? Barashia bas Rashia. So let's see the Rashi on this. Rashi explains what's this case of Rashia bar Rashia. Habal imay. A man, he's born his mother. V'haylid shtei banis. And he has two daughters from this let's call it light. Okay, it's really the other way around. It's not habal imay. It's habal bitai, right? But light's a good name for this guy. So light was ba on his mother, and he had two daughters. Right, let's say those two daughters, I forgot their names, but let's say Amen and Mayev, and I forgot their names of the actual daughters. But we'll call the daughters men's names. He had two daughters, Amen and Mayev, who were his daughters, but they were also the daughter of his mother, right? So that makes them, these daughters, his sister. Then he took one of those two daughters, who is his sister, and he was born her, and he had a son. So let's say he was born on Amoid, and he had a son. What's his name? Lavan. So Lavan then was ba, he wasn't ba on Amoid on his mother, but he was ba on the sister of his mother, which was Mayav. So Mayav is all these things. It's his sister, because they share the same father, right? They're both this, I don't know what to call her, but this Mayav is the daughter of light, and Lavan is the son of light. So they're brother and sister, and it's also obviously the sister of his mother, right? We said Amin and Mayav with the two sisters who are both have the same. They have the same parents, and it's also Achais Aviv. It's also the sister of his father, because they both share the same mother. Okay, that's how you have one person who is both the sister as well as his father's sister and his mother's sister. Rav Yitzchak Haminale. Where does Rav Yitzchak know this din of Rashia bar Rashia, that they're going to be, where it's the same, it's Guf Echad and Shemus Muchlakin, where the one person, there's separate Isurim in that same person. Nafkale Mikal V'chayma. He learns it out. The Gemara wants to say first, learn out from Kal V'chayma, the Tanya, Amar Rabbi Kiva. Sha'aldi Yisra Rabbi Gamliel Rabbi Yeshua be'itlis shal imus. I asked Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Yeshua when we were in the garden, the market of Imus, of the Sheikhtim, the Shlachtais in Imus, Shehochel Likach Behema Lemishta B'noi Shel Gamliel. They were going to get food for his chasana of his son. I asked him, Abala Choisa Shiachais Aviv Shiachais Imai. Mao, this case of Rashia bar Rashia, is there a separate lav? Is there a separate malka chatas for each one?
I mean, one Maisa on one person, we should have 3 separate lavim.
Yeah. Should really get Malkus. Amaloi Zuloi Shamanu. He said, I don't know, I never heard the halacha of this case, Aval Shamanu, but I did hear Habal Chamish Noshim Nida. So if someone's born 5 separate women, he's not aware of the Isser Nida, and he's born 5 separate women who are Nidas, Behelam Echad, with one forgetting, that means he didn't recognize in between. He's going to get Malkus for each one. Beniran, or it could be according to Rabbi Yitzchak, it wouldn't be a Malkus, it would just be a Chatas for each one. Because he holds you don't get Malkus for a Chayav Kars. Beniran, Dvar Mikal V'chaymer. So he says, but it's now I could learn a Kal V'chaymer. Umani Dashu Shem Echad. If you could be mechayiv separately for the same shame, if he's being chayiv on nida over and over, he could still be mechayiv separate carbon chatas. Kan shloisha shemus over here by Rashia bar Rashia, where we're talking about 3 separate isurim. There's a distinction. There's one isur of his being born his sister. There's another one for this sister of his father, sister of his mother. It's 3 separate isurim. Like Kol Shekain, certainly you should be chayiv separately. The idach, and the other one answers back, meaning the mandama who says that you're not going to learn it out from this Kal V'chaymer. Kal V'chaymer prichu is a very obvious question on this Kal V'chaymer. Mal nidish chen gufim mechlakim. By the nida, it's 5 separate women. Masha Enken over here by Rashia, it's all the same woman. So one would see less likely that just because she has separate identities, that should be mechayiv separate malchus for each identity. So Zakti Umaro lidach nami havade kavachayme prichehi. L'chayra, again, this you can't learn out Rashia bar Rashia from here. So we said, so we're back to our original question. So this whole Shakvatanya is very strange. We said we bring a riot from this kavachayme. They brought a kavachayme. We said it's kavachayme prichehi. And the other person also, it's for sure kavachayim. And the Gemara says, yeah, you're right. Because what was the havamina of this? Say you ask, say kavachayim, and you say it's such an obvious kavachayim. Why did everyone agrees to it? What was the havamina?
Right, the period was so obvious. Like we said over the original, I was like, that was my first question.
Yeah,
I was happy that I didn't ask another share. I was like, oh, the fact that Gemara asks it. So now it's such a good percha.
That's why I try to go quickly.
Yeah. It's such a gishmak percha. Then it really begs the question: was the havamina?
Right, and Nishna of them. I mean, it sounds like Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Yeshua held it was a good kavachayim. But in any case, we are back to our original question, right? That the Chachamim said Rabbi Yitzchak had used Yatza Kars B'Chaisai to tell you that there's no Malkus on Kars. And the Chachamim said that comes to tell you Rashia bar Rashia that there's separate Malkus, or separate Carbon Chatas. So now, and Rabbi Yitzchak, we tried to learn that from a Kavachayim, but he wasn't able. So again, where does Rabbi Yitzchak know Rashia bar Rashia? They chayv separately. Al Nafkal Me'Chaisai the Seifa. We learn it out from the Pasuk. The Pasuk says, V'shahikach HaChaisai B'Asavivai B'Asimai Roas Ervasa V'Yitiras Ervasa Chesed U'B'Nichus Eini B'nei Amam Ervas Achoisa Gila. Says at the end, he was Megal, the Erva of his sister. We know who we're talking about. It should say Ervasa Gila. He was Megala Erva. What does that say? Achoisa again. So that's coming to tell you that like we said, that it's telling you Rashia bar Rashia, that he's going to be Mechayev separately on each one. V'ida chasoyse the sefer lam. And now the Rabbanan, what are they going to do with this achaysay? L'chayva l'achaysay bas aviv ubas imay. Lo meshein oin shemin hadin. If you remember back in Sanhedrin, we came across this oddity that the Torah says a person is mechoyev for being ba on a chaysay bas aviv, right? It says in the pasuk, Asher yikach es achaysay bas aviv oy bas imay. The daughter of his father or the daughter of his mother, so that's how it's his sister. The Torah never says achaysay bas aviv u bas imay, one who's a full sister. It just says either case of half sister. And so the Torah is coming to tell you the second achaysay, the Torah says achaysay at the end of the pasuk, that's coming to include even a full achaysay. And the Gemara says, and we learn out from there. Obviously, now one could certainly make a kal v'chaymer. It seems like a great kal v'chaymer. It's not a kal v'chaymer bricha.
Yeah, it's cool.
That if you're mechuyev for a half sister, you should certainly person should be mechuyev for being born on his full sister. So we see from there ein ein sheminatin, that you can't learn a kal v'chaymer to tell you what the chiyuv is going to be, what the einish is going to be. Which, I mean, I always like to keep in my mind, which makes it more palatable, this idea of ein ein sheminadin, because an einish could include a theory of kapara. It includes you get forgiven for what you've done. So you can never, if you make a kal v'chaymer, maybe you're saying this thing is muhammad, should certainly get that einish. Maybe you're past that einish. You don't qualify for the einish anymore. So if you want to,
that's a.
I don't know. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that explained, but if you want to wait,
yeah, it's good.
So now, so that's what the Rabbanan who don't use Yatsa Karas B'Chaisa, so they used it to say Rashia Bar Rashia, but they're going to say this. They use Achaisai, Yatsa Achaisai for Rashia Bar Rashia. So then they use this Achaisai, the Sefer, to tell you Shein Ein Shemin Adin by a full Achaisai. The Idach, but where's Rabbi Yitzchak going to learn this din? That a full Achaisai, a full sister, he's going to be chayav if he's going on a full sister. There's going to be a chiv kares in it. I could say that the Torah says you're not allowed to be born achaisai. So he says he learns that you can learn out one from the other. Since the Torah said the azhara, it was not machalik between his full sister and a bas aviv or basima. It's not machalik between a full sister and a half sister. So just like the azhara applies to a full sister, the einish, even though it specifies the two half sisters, will also include a full sister. Viba Yisema, or you could say Nafkale Me'achaisa Dereisha. It says in the beginning of the pasuk. Go back. Why doesn't it just have Isha Sheyikach as Basa V'Vay Basimai? So he will learn it out from the second extra Achaisa. Now, so then we have the ping pong goes back, the idach. So now, what is the other mandama going to do with that achaisai? The Torah says that there's an iser mefatem that you're not allowed to create a fake shemen hamishcha, and you're also not allowed to smear yourself with the shemen hamishcha. And the Torah says, it says one kares and two lavim. The Torah says don't create this shemen and also don't smear it. And if you do it, you're going to get kares. So there's one kares on both of them. I might think that since the Torah put it in this configuration that it said one kares for both of them, maybe it means the Torah didn't have to say any kares. The fact that the Torah said kares, one kares on both of them, that will tell you that you're only going to be mechuyev for one, that they're not going to be mecholak. If you over both of them, you're only going to bring one carbon. Other man dama holds like Rabbi Zamar. Vaishia dam Rabbi Zamar. Vaishia kol makom shata moitz shnei lav v'karas echad chulugin hein lekarbon. He says no. It's a general rule that sometimes the Torah will not tell you a separate karas for each one. If you have two similar isurim, the Torah might put just instead of saying you get a karas for this and you get a karas for that, the Torah just says there's a karas on both of them. And that doesn't mean that they're going to be considered to be only one carbon for the two of them if you over them behalamech. Be by sema. Or you don't even have to say like Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Shia that says misvara that you're going to be mechayiv separate karbanis if you do two things that were two isurim that were brought on the same karas. The nafkalei maybe isha sheyishkav is isha dava. The Torah says an ish again. It says ish asher yishkav es isha dava. It says what is after is isha dava? Let it just say ish asher yishkav dava. Either so for the fact that it says an extra isha, that's coming to tell you that it's coming to mechalik on every isser in the Torah. We learn out from there that every isser in the Torah, whenever it says one, even if it says only one karas for multiple isurim, you're going to be mechayiv separately. So he's saying it's not really different than Rabbi Lazar of Haishia. We're learning the same din, but he's saying you learn it out from a pasuk, from a ribeya pasuk. Mashenka Rabbi Lazar of Haishia said it misvar. Now what are we doing from Isha Sheyishkav as Isha Dava? What is he going to do with that pasuk? Minayin shein Isha mitmeya ache yava yatsa midava derech harvasa. That you're only going to be mechoyev. A woman only becomes a nida from dam that comes out from Oisa Makam. Not if she's let's say there's a surgery and the same dam comes out in a different way. That's coming to tell you this thing. And for some reason, I guess, and the other man would disagree with that. He doesn't hold to this din. He holds that a man will become tamei. She'll become tamei tumas nida, even if it comes out from a different place. Okay, that was the easy part. So the Mishnah had said, tamei she'achal es hakodesh. We have to do a little bit of tumas mikdash. We said in the Mishnah, a tamei is a man who's tamei, a person who's tamei who eats kodesh. Kodesh over here means a carbon. He ate from a carbon that it could be a Yisrael he brought a shlomim and this basa from the shlom that he's allowed to eat. But he's tamei. If he eats it, he's going to be mechuyev malchus. Zaktumar. Bishlam habala mikdash tamei. Ksiv einish uksiv ashara. We know that by someone who comes to the mikdash when he is tamei. Right? This is something not where he ate from Kodesh, but rather he came into the base of Mikdash while he's tamei. It says in Einish uksiv ashara. Einish tachsev etz mishkan Hashem timei v'nichrasa. It says the Einish of kares. For someone who goes into the Beis Hamikdash when he's tamei, asarav lo yitamu es machaneh. Says you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't make the machaneh tamei. Ela tamei she'achal es hakodesh. But what about tamei that eats kodesh? Bishlama einish ksev anefesh teichal basam mizevach hashlam asher l'Hashem v'tumasay olav v'nechrasa. It says a einish of kares on someone who eats kodesh kachim while he's tamei. Ela azhara minayin. Where does the Torah say that you shouldn't do it, right? All it says over here is the einish is kares, but we don't have, right? We always need two things. We need both that the Torah says what the punishment is, and the Torah has to tell you directly it's prohibited. You're not allowed to do it. But we don't have, the Torah never says directly that you can't eat kachim while you're tamei. Rish Lakish Aimer, so Rish Lakish says you learn it out from B'chol Kodesh Lo Yisida. This is talking about a woman who becomes tamei after the birth of a child. It says Ushloishim Yom Ushloishes Yom and Teisha V'Dmei Tahara. She remains for 33 days. She remains tahar. Chol Kodesh Lo Yisiva L'Mikdash Lo Yisava Ad Malei Shemei Tahara. That's until that time. That's how long she's going to be tamei. The Mei Tahara means tamei, and she's not going to be allowed to B'chol Kodesh Lo Yisiva. She's not allowed to be allowed to touch kachim. And it also says on Mikdash Shlois Tova Yad No Shemei Torah. Now, obviously, we said B'chol Kodesh Shlois Siga. How does that get you that you can't eat? But the Gemara will address that later. But we'll just accept that for now. It's going to be all the way at the end of the block. Rabbi Yochanan disagrees with this. Tani Bardla, Asya Tumasai Tumasai. He says from B'Shem Bardla that we learn it out from Tumasai. Ksiv Hacha v'Tumasai Alav. It says over here, where does it say? It calling again, but it's just Adam Mashiyam, so he's got touch with Time Benichus, and never should be stalking in those. Oy Tumasai boy, and it says, no, that's not over there. Ksiv Hacha Tumasai Alav. So that was, where is it? Tumasai Alav. I'm trying to find the pasuk. What does Rashi say? Tumasai Alav v'tomei she'achal as hakodesh. It says by tomei that ate kodesh, right? By the what we just brought as the einish, right? There is an azhara for a tomei she'achal kodesh. And it said on that Tumasai Alav, Uksiv Oy Tumasai Boy, B'Bal HaMikdash Tamei. And it says Tumasai Boy by someone who comes into the carbon when he's Tamei. So Mal Allah and Oynish Vazar, just like by Ba Al HaMikdash, the din is that you get, like we said earlier in this sugya, we said that there's both an Azhara and an Oynish. Afkan Oynish Vazar. We'll learn out from the Gzeir Shava that even though Legabi, someone who's Eichel Kodesh, we only have an Einish and not an Azhara, we'll learn out the Gzeir Shav of Tumasai from Baal HaMikdash, where there is an Azhara, to tell you there's also an Azhara for Eichel Kodesh. So we can understand where Rish Lakish doesn't say that Rabbi Yochanan. He doesn't hold this Gzeir Shav, he doesn't have this Gzeir Shav of Tumasai. Rabbi Yochanan, my time, Rish Lakish. Why doesn't he use the pasuk of B'chol Kodesh Loisiga to tell you Eichel Betuma? Amalacha hu ashara letruma. Rabbi Yochanan would say, I can't use that because I don't use that for Kodesh, for eating a carbon when he's tamei. It's coming to tell you someone who eats truma when he's tamei. Someone truma is a different thing than kachim, even though in our mind they're both holy. But kachim means a carbon. Truma is what the tfuah that a kayin is also to eat if he's tamei. So it's an azhara for a kayin who's tamei that he's not allowed to eat truma. Rish Lakish azhara letruma minali. Where is Rish Lakish going to learn this azhara from? Nafkalim ish mizer aaron v'hutzarua izav. Torah says someone from Bnei Aaron who's a tzarua izav. It's the whole part of the issue is with Tzurua Izav, but Kachim lo yoichel adashi yitar. He's not allowed to eat Kachim until he's tamei. The Torah says azhara. I'm sorry? Tzurua is a Mitzaira. Tumas Mitzaira. Or is a Zav, is a Tumas Zav. Ezeu Dava Shu Shava Bezar Shalar. And how do we know that it's talking about Truma? So you say, which thing is all Bnei Aaron equally asran? Truma. I mean, is allowed to eat. It means both a male and a female kayin are allowed to eat truma. Now, Masha Enke by kachim, there are certain restrictions. Now, the truth is that the family of a kayin is also allowed to eat kachim. They're allowed to eat the matnas kahuna. Rashi explains it means legabi the din if someone who was a bas kayin who got married and then she returns to her father's house, she'll return to being able to eat truma, but she won't return to being able to eat kachim. So there is a additional restriction on kachim on a bas kayin. So therefore, when the Torah says, it says mizer Aaron, from the descendants of Aaron, instead of saying from Bnei Aaron, so it's talking about something that's all that men and women are entirely equal. So that's talking about truma. Truma, there's no distinction between men and women, while there are distinctions l'gabi eating kachim. So that's where Rish Lakish will learn out the din of truma. So he doesn't need to say, he doesn't need b'chol kodesh loisiga to tell you truma. Be'idach, what about the chachamim? What do they do with this ish mizera aaron v'utzaroi zav? Ahula achila, b'ha l'negia. He says no. We need two separate psukim. One is to tell you that it's also to eat truma when you're tummy, and the second one is to tell you that it's also to touch truma when you're tummy. Saktamar Rish Lakish, I bechol kodesh leisiga lahachi hudasa. Oh, I'm sorry. And the Gemara asks, Rish Lakish, I bechol kodesh leisiga lahachi hudasa. Is it true that Rish Lakish is using bechol kodesh leisiga to tell you the din of a tameh that's eichel kachim? We really need it for something else. Ahumi ba'ilei tameh shenaga b'kodesh, to tell you a tameh that touched kodesh. Right, and this is really, it's almost like strange that you would have, well, it's strange that's what the pasuk says. It says l'chol kodesh leisiga. So l'chayru you would assume that that's what it's talking about.
So this is so kodesh leisiga. That's only for a kohen. It's not for this row.
We're not talking about truma. We're talking about kachim. So right. So according to Rish Lakish, that was the original problem, right? Our Mishnah had said that a tamei that ate kachim is chayiv malchus and karas, and so we said, where does that come from? Where does Azhara come from? So Rish Lakish said it comes from this pasuk of Chol Kodesh Leisiga, that you can't eat tuma b'kachim. We're saying you need it the tamei shenaga b'kodesh. The itmar tamei shenaga b'kodesh. Rish Lakish amar laika. Rabbi Yochanan me'ena laika. And the Gemara explained, and the Bryce explains, Rish Lakish amar laika b'chol kodesh leisiga. Rabbi Yochanan laika. Azul azar letruma udasa. Rabbi Yochanan says this taka no malchus for touching kachim. It's an azara for truma. Now, the Gemara is now going to address, and this is really going to be at the end of the Gemara. It's going to explain it in more detail. This next piece is a little bit difficult to understand on the surface. Tamei shenaga b'kodesh. Tamei shenaga b'kodesh. So I'm sorry. So the Gemara is asking a question. So we were saying Rabbi Yochanan, Rish Lakish, seems to say that you need this pasuk of tameh of b'chol kodesh leisiga to tell you the isser of touching kodesh. So how can he also use it to tell you achilas kodesh b'tumah? So tomorrow tameh shenaga b'kodesh means after achmana b'lashon negia, and the fact that the Torah used a lashon negia when it told you this isser. So that tells you not just achila, but also negia. It's telling you the list of achila, but it means it beloshin, since it uses that, it says don't touch it, so that tells you also negia. So now the Gemara says, so I have to look at Rashi because he has the girsa that we're going to use. Where is it? Yeah, let me see Gimel. Let me see the Bach. V'azhara la'oichel iskes kodesh. The Gemara says v'azhara la'oichel. V'azhara for an oichel. Iskes kodesh lamikdash. The pasuk said a lashon negia, so that tells you negia. So then why do we say it also is coming to tell you the achila? Right, that was Rish Lakish's original thing that he says you learn out an iter achila of tamei be'kodesh. The azhara la'oichel be'kodesh iskes kodesh lamikdash, because the Torah put together the isser of eating kodesh together with the isser of going into the mikdash. And as the Gemara will explain later on, the isser of being born in the mikdash is an isser karas, so it has to also here be talking about an isser karas, and the Isser chorus of being legabi kachim is only going to be on Eichel. It's not going to be on Negia. As we're going to see later on the Gemara is going to explain how we know that, but we know that there's no Isser. Actually, it's not here. It's someplace else. That there's no Isser chorus to be bought to be Negia b'kachim. So tomorrow v'chati l'chachi da'asa. I is for a different thing. We need this to tell you someone who ate kabasa kodesh before the zrikas dam. The itma. Tamash achabasa kodesh v'nezikas dam. Shlakish amalaika. V'yechan ama'ena Shlakish amalaika b'chal kodesh l'sidi l'shin l'fnezika l'shin l'achazika. Shlakish says there's no difference between the fnezika and l'achazika. V'yechan ama'ena loika. Because Rabbi Yechanan says it has to be full kachim. It has to be kachim after you do the zrikas dam that already is at that point in the process of becoming kachim. But before zrika, it's still not yet something that you're mutter to eat in the first place. So until it gets that heter achila, then it's not going to have the iser karas for being for eating it betumah. So Gemara Yechal Tamei Damakra Tamasai Tamasai B'chik Siv Tamasai LaAchaz Rika Hu Dechsiv. Since the Torah he says the Gzeir Shava that we saw before, so that's only LaAchaz Rika. Ahi B'chal Kodesh Nafka. So the Gemara Ahi B'chal Kodesh Nafka. So we're going to say where's Rish Lakish? He's going to need it to tell you even L'fnei Zrika. So where's he going to learn it out from? He says no. He learns it out from B'chal Kodesh. Tanya Kavas Rish Lakish B'chal Kodesh. She goes Halo Eichel. This is finally the source of where Rish Lakish knows that the pasuk B'chal Kodesh Loisiga is talking about specifically Achila and not Negia. Makkos Kodesh Lamikdash Mamik the Jaf Yesh by Netil Shama with his Achil Karas, which has to be Achila. I've called up Yesh by Netil Shama. The Ibn Negia Miyik Netil Shama Ella B'Achila. It has to be talking about Achila. Okay, we'll stop over here. I appreciate your patience once again.